destruction severe. Officials warning of a life and death situation. ABC's Lindsay Davis is in Port-au-Prince right now. Good morning, Lindsay.
Good morning, George. Still a bit of rain here this morning. A hurricane warning does remain in effect for this area. And while the capital city largely dodged a bullet, there are some rural areas here that are just absolutely devastated, and fears remain for flooding, mudslides, and possibly cholera.
This is Matthew!
Winds reaching 145 miles per hour, tearing through south and northwestern Haiti. The Category 4 hurricane bringing torrential rainfall. The coastal town of Lecay swept away by flooding. Flash floods ripping through villages. This man dangerously tries to cross the rushing waters.
You can see the river absolutely raging. It's already 15 feet higher from where it would normally be, and still it continues to rise. Concern is so great that police have closed down this bridge, so people who are in this village are unable to make it to Port-au-Prince by car.
The damage in some of Haiti's rural areas could be catastrophic. The majority of people live in makeshift homes. Before the storm struck, authorities tried evacuating the most vulnerable, but many refused to leave, fearing theft.
The real concern now with all this rain, mudslides.
This morning, assessing all the damage in the impoverished country is proving incredibly difficult, with communications cut off in many areas after bridges gave way and roads became impassable. Standing water and mounds of trash fill several streets in the capital city.
The Haitian government has asked the U.S. government for help in their relief effort, though the full toll and devastation here on this island is not yet known. The death toll across the Caribbean is now up to at least 11. George.
Okay, Lindsay Davis. Boy, what a horrible situation.
The accused hitman facing murder charges in the killing of a Florida State professor has reached a plea deal. Luis Rivera pled guilty to second-degree murder and is now cooperating with authorities. Prosecutors say his childhood friend fired the shots that killed the professor, Dan Merkel, in 2014. They also contend Merkel's former in-laws hired the hitman following a bitter
Let's get
divorce.
the latest on that hot car trial where a father is facing murder charges for leaving his 22-month-old son in a scorching SUV for hours. Now, video showing his reaction to the death is raising big questions, and ABC's Steve Osensami has the details from the courtroom.
In court this morning, jurors will hear more from witnesses who saw the moment when Justin Ross Harris bailed into this parking lot on his way home from work in June of 2014.
I heard a car come in, brake screech, and just yelling going on.
During opening statements Tuesday, Harris's attorney said this is when he discovers the lifeless body of his 22-month-old son in the back seat of his SUV, still strapped in a rear-facing car seat after more than 7 hours in the hot car.
Ross loved that little boy more than anything. Cooper's death was an accident.
Harris cried in court, reliving the day. He's charged with murder and second-degree child cruelty. He's pleading not guilty, saying it was an accident when he forgot to drop his son off at daycare.
Ross has always acknowledged that this was his fault, that he was responsible. But what you're going to see during this trial is that responsible isn't the same thing as criminal.
But police are testifying that Harris didn't look remorseful, and they shared video from inside this police cruiser where they say he seemed more concerned about the air conditioning than his dead son.
He immediately complained about how hot it was in my vehicle.
Harris's attorneys point to another piece of video from the same cruiser. Prosecutors say that Harris left his son to die on purpose because he wanted a child-free life and had been sexting with other women that day. They say he knew the heat could kill after watching videos online, a point his lawyers deny.
If you see a child left alone in a vehicle, please call 911.
Harris is now divorced, but his ex-wife is expected to take the stand and share that she, too, thinks this was an accident.
And our thanks to Steve Osensami for that report. Joining us now, Nancy Grace, the host of Nancy Grace on HLN. And Nancy, so many dramatic moments in day one of testimony. What stood out most to you?
Well, I find it very ironic that Justin Ross Harris, started crying during his defense's opening statements when it stated over and over and over that when he saw and realized his son was dead, he never shed a tear. Another thing that struck me is this. Maybe I'm projecting, but, you know, I recently lost my father, and I remember there in the hospital, they said, okay, you can leave now. And there was just something innate. I did not want to leave him. Justin Ross Harris had no problems leaving his child's body. He left him there. And I find that very, very disturbing. A lot has been made of Justin Ross Harris's sexting, including allegedly to an underage girl. Do I like that? No. I want to hold my nose at it. But that does not a murder make. What will be more probative or helping the state prove their case is if they can come through with what was alleged in some of these search warrants that he had actually been searching. How long does it take an animal or a dog to die in a hot car? Was he searching a new life, child-free? And another thing, I drove that exact drive that he took that morning. He went into Chick-fil-A with his son, not a drive-through. They all saw the son, Cooper, happy, laughing, put him back in the car. He had less than 2 minutes to drive. What, he forgot his son was alive in 2 minutes? How can that be? It can't.
So you hit all the key pieces of evidence that we're going to hear from the prosecution. In terms of the defense, you just heard there in Steve's report that Harris's ex-wife is going to take the stand. What do you think that will do to bolster the defense's account? Because she's expected to say that she thinks this was an accident and she supports her ex-husband.
Okay, this is what I would do. If I were the prosecution, I would not call her. And I'll tell you why. Because if you let the defense call her, then you'll have her on cross-examination. They kind of threw down the gauntlet and said, well, if the state's not going to call her, we will. Okay, great, call her. I'd rather have her on cross-examination. What do I think of Leanna? A, she says she didn't know, she doesn't believe this was intentional, it was an accident, that her husband that she knows so well would never have done that. Well, did she know he was with hookers? Did she know he was cheating? If she didn't know that much, how does she know he won't lie to save his own skin? That's what I would argue.
All right, there's a lot coming up in this court case. Nancy Grace, thanks so much for joining us as always. The entire southeastern coastline is at risk, along with Charleston. So let's go to Ginger with a look at the storm's path.
And Amy, I want to get straight to that track. Of course, it comes through the Bahamas, and then as a Category 4, the current track has it Thursday night into early Friday morning, affecting parts of southeast and central Florida. It runs parallel and hugs along the coast right through southeast Georgia, close to Charleston and Wilmington. And of course, where this track takes it out to sea, the National Hurricane Center puts this together, and that is exactly where we're going to go now, to the director, Dr. Rick Knabb. And Rick, as we look at this, there is no direct landfall, but there will still be huge impact, right?
Right. We don't know for sure if Matthew is going to come ashore in the U.S., starting with the potential in Florida, or not. It is possible that the core of Matthew could come ashore in the hurricane warning area in Florida, so people need to be preparing for the possibility of a major hurricane coming ashore. But even if the center stays offshore, you could still have hurricane conditions on the coast, storm surge, heavy rainfall. You don't have to be near the center of the storm to be at the center of action in land areas.
I think that's exactly what people need to hear this morning. The heavy rain, the storm surge, even though you're not right in it, it can affect you. Thank you so much, Dr. Knabb.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And that heavy rain we're talking about, wanted to show it to you graphically. This is what it would look like, up to 6+ inches, guys. So really, you could see 10+ in some of these coastal areas. You add the waves, you add the wind, that surge. This could be bad, even if it just...
The Carolinas, Georgia, and Florida are all under states of emergency, and millions are preparing to evacuate ahead of Matthew. ABC's Gio Benitez is in Miami. Good morning, Gio.
Michael, good morning to you. We have those state of emergency declarations, but we also have those hurricane warnings, and those mean that conditions could start in just 36 hours.
This morning, millions from the Florida Keys to the Carolina coast bracing for the worst. South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley joining North Carolina, Florida, and Georgia to declare a state of emergency, ordering all 1 million coastal residents to begin evacuating.
And make sure you get out of harm's way.
Traffic already piling up last night after it was announced that starting at 3 p.m. today, 100 miles of I-26 East will be reversed. You can leave the coastline, but you won't be able to get back in. With gas going fast, drivers are forming long lines to fuel up, stocking up on propane and plywood.
We drove to like 4 different stations trying to get gas and no gas.
The short supplies even triggering panic at the pump. Some people even calling 911. Police urging residents to be patient. Food and water supplies dwindling by the minute.
Crazy, all the water gone. All of South Florida is stocking up.
Matthew could be the biggest mass evacuation America's seen since Floyd in 1999, when 2.6 million residents in 5 states were ordered from their homes.
And you may remember the El Faro disaster. That's a ship that sank exactly a year ago during a hurricane. It killed 33 people. Well, reports this morning that the company may be sending another ship into this storm's path. No doubt, this is a huge concern, guys.
All right, Gio, thank you.